A chilling wind howls through a secluded Canadian forest where newlyweds Bea and Paul step into a nightmare disguised as a honeymoon. Something sinister lurks in the shadows, pulling Bea into a mystery that threatens to unravel her very identity. What begins as a romantic escape spirals into a descent of terror where love is tested against an unearthly force. The sun dips low, painting the dense Canadian forest in hues of gold and crimson. Bea and Paul, glowing with newlywed joy, pull up to a rustic cabin nestled deep in the wilderness. The air is crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth. Bea's eyes sparkle as she tells Paul this was her family's retreat, a place of childhood memories. They unpack, laughing, their hands brushing as they set up their temporary home. The cabin creaks softly, its wooden walls holding secrets of decades past. Paul, smitten, watches Bea dance through the kitchen, her laughter echoing. They share a glass of wine by the fireplace, the flames casting warm shadows across their faces. But as night falls, the forest outside grows eerily silent, the darkness pressing against the windows like an uninvited guest. The next day, they venture to a small, weathered restaurant nearby, its neon sign flickering weakly. Inside, the air smells of grease and coffee. The owner greets Bea with a familiar grin. She introduces him to Paul as a childhood friend. His weathered face lights up, but his eyes hold a strange intensity. Their conversation is warm, nostalgic, until Annie, Will's wife, storms in. Her face is pale, her voice sharp as she snaps at Will, "We need to get away." Her gaze flips to Bea and Paul, a warning in her eyes, before she drags Will out. Paul shrugs it off, but Bea's smile falters, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug. That night, Paul jolts awake in the cabin's bedroom, the bed cold beside him. Bea is gone. His heart pounds as he calls her name, his voice swallowed by the oppressive silence. Grabbing a flashlight, he stumbles into the forest, the beam cutting through the darkness. Twigs snap underfoot, and his breath catches as he spots her, Bea, naked and trembling, standing in a clearing. Her eyes are distant, unfocused, her skin pale under the moonlight. "I was sleepwalking," she mumbles as he wraps her in his jacket, guiding her back to the cabin. "Stress, maybe." Paul nods, but unease coils in his gut. Bea has never sleepwalked before. Days pass and Bea's behavior grows stranger. She fumbles with simple tasks as burning toast, forgetting how to tie her shoes. Paul watches, his concern deepening as she stares blankly at a knife, unable to recall its purpose. One evening, he catches her in the living room, whispering to herself, practicing phrases like she's rehearsing a role. "Hi, I'm Bea," she mutters, her voice shaky. When he asks if she's okay, she snaps, "I'm fine." But her eyes dart away, hiding something. Paul's sleep is restless, haunted by her vacant stares. One night, a blinding light floods their bedroom, pouring through the windows like liquid fire. Paul scrambles to the window, heart racing, but finds nothing, no cars, no source. The forest is still, too still. Driven by instinct, he returns to the clearing where he found Bea. There, tangled in the underbrush, is her nightgown, smeared with a slick, foul-smelling goo that glistens unnaturally. His stomach churns. Something is wrong, terribly wrong. His mind flashes to Will's odd behavior, Annie's cryptic warning. Convinced Will knows something, Paul drives to the restaurant, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Outside the restaurant, Annie stands alone, her movements jerky, her eyes hollow. Paul notices strange, identical marks on her thighs, red, raw like burns. She mirrors Bea's disorientation, her words slurring as she warns, "Stay away, Will's hiding." Before Paul can press her, she flees. Near the lake, he spots something bobbing in the water, Will's baseball hat, stained with blood. Dread claws at him as he enters their home, the air thick with the stench of decay. On the table, he finds pages of scribbled notes. Annie, married to Will, likes coffee. Mundane details, as if someone were learning to be her. A security camera's footage reveals Annie entranced, following a beam of light into the woods, her face blank. Paul races back to the cabin, his heart sinking as he finds similar notes in Bea's handwriting. "Bea loves Paul, wedding in June." His voice trembles as he confronts her. "Who are you?" Bea's face crumples and she bolts to the bathroom, locking the door. Panic surges as he hears her screams. He breaks in, and the sight stops his heartbeat, bloodied, stabbing herself in the genitals with a shard of glass, her face twisted in agony. "Get it out," she sobs. Paul restrains her, tying her to the bed, his hands shaking. He demands answers, quizzing her on their life together, her favorite song, their first date. Her answers are wrong, incomplete, her eyes wild with fear. In a moment of desperation, she grabs his hand, guiding it inside her. His fingers close around something slimy, alive, a worm-like creature, writhing as he pulls it free. Vomit rises in his throat. Bee's voice is a whisper, broken. She confesses that night in the woods she saw lights, brighter than anything. Silhouetted figures surrounded her, their forms unnatural, and they implanted something. "They're taking me," she says, tears streaming. Piece by piece, Paul scrambles for the car keys, desperate to flee, but Bee's voice is firm. "We can't leave. They won't let us." A beam of light pierces the cabin, blinding, and before Paul can react, Bee swings a lamp, knocking him out. He wakes on a boat, the lake's dark water lapping around him. His legs are bound to an anchor, Bee's face looming above, her skin peeling, her eyes milky and wrong. "I'm protecting you," she says, her voice hollow. "They can't find you down there." Paul thrashes, begging, but she shoves him overboard. The cold water swallows him, the anchor pulling him into the depths, his screams muffled as the surface fades above. Bee stumbles back to the cabin, her body deteriorating, skin flaking like ash, eyes clouded. She sits, trembling, watching their wedding video on a loop, her smile, Paul's laughter, a life slipping away. Annie appears, her own body crumbling, her face a mirror of Bee's decay. Without a word, they clasp hands, drawn to the forest where the lights pulse, brighter now, calling. They step into the glow, their forms dissolving into the blinding void, leaving only silence in their wake. And in the lake's depths, Paul's final breath bubbles to the surface, lost to the night.